Welcome to this video on how to input data into SPSS. So you should find your SPSS logo on your desktop here. You can open it by double clicking. If you don't have this on your desktop, then make sure you have got it installed, and if you haven't got it installed, then you can see one of our previous videos on how you can do that, both at home and at the university. So when you come to open SPSS, you will be confronted with this smaller window, and this will give you a list of previous SPSS files that you might have looked at. Now, if you've never used it before, it doesn't matter. This is not going to appear for you, in which case you can either press New Data Set and open, or you can just close this particular box. So if you haven't seen SPSS before, it does have some similarities to Excel, but it's different too. Firstly, there are two different tabs, Dataview, which we're in now. This is where our raw data will go. And then we have Variable View, which has information about our data. Won't make much sense until we copy something over. So, if we go to Excel, and you can download this file from the vital page, Know How Academic Success. So if you do want to have a go at this, there's also a handbook that you can follow as well. So here are some data. They are real life data from the Titanic, which very sadly sank in the early 1900s. The important thing when you copy data over to SPSS is not to copy over your column names. They must not be copied. Otherwise, this will cause you big problems in your SPSS dataset. Now, I would normally click on a number at the side. In this case, it's number 2. That's where the top of our data are, and that selects the whole row. I then drag this right to the bottom, go to the bottom of our data set, I hold down Shift and press the very bottom set of values. And if I just take it back to the top, I can see I have not selected that top row, so that's really important. And now all I have to do is right-click, copy, make sure that I'm in Dataview, go to this top cell, right-click, and then paste. It can take some time to paste, depends on how many samples you have. So now we have all of our data, but it hasn't copied over the column names as we asked it to do. Also, because I dragged a few extra cells, it seems to have given a few extra names or variables here. You don't have to worry about those for now. So if you now imagine that our data, so for example this column here which goes down, now when you go into variable view, that column goes across like this. And this gives you information about our data. Now, there's a very quick way that we can relabel our data. So, rather than typing it in manually, which you can do by simply editing this, making sure that you don't have any special characters. It doesn't mind underscores, but it doesn't like spaces, it doesn't like dashes. The same goes for these names. If you're about to do what I'm going to do now and copy them over, make sure you haven't got any special characters, or it will simply stop copying and pasting over at the point where you've got a name with a special character in. So the quick way to copy over your names is copy, very importantly click away, go to the paste function and then transpose. So this turns rows into columns and vice versa. You can then right click copy, you can go back to SPSS and then you can just paste. So there we go. So these are all of our names of our different columns and variables. So for some reason we seem to have got these extra ones. So I'm just going to get rid of them. So you can see how easy this is to do. I'm just right-clicking to get rid of these unwanted ones. I don't want them to cause any confusion. And now they've disappeared from here. And as you can see, we now know what all of our columns are. What we don't know is, we don't necessarily know what P class means. We don't necessarily know what a 3 or a 2 or a 1 means. Now I do know what these mean because when I downloaded the data, I actually got a full data set which was very kindly put together by somebody, and it was very well labelled. And it's a really important thing to do when you are given a data set of any kind, is to make sure you've got really good labels so that if you come back to your data in the future, you know what the different codes were, what things were, but also if somebody inherits your data, that they understand what the data are. So when I click on this cell, something will pop up very quickly. So you can see this, as I'm just holding it down, this blue box appears simultaneously, and then this pops up here. So I know that P-class actually means passenger class. What I could do is, in the label function, I could actually type passenger class here. So it gives a bit more information to somebody who's about to inherit my data set. Under value, I know that 1s were given to those who were in first class, so that was the code. I know that a 2 was given to those who were in second class, and I know that a 3 was given to those in third class, and then I would just press OK. Again, for survived, I know that 1 meant that they survived, so I'll add that, whereas sadly a 0 meant that they died, and I add an OK. And I just would continue down the list. And if you do want to have a go at doing this yourself, then by all means have a look at the Introduction to SPSS Handbook, and it will give you all the different codes that you need to enter here. So anything apart from the name variable, and you can see it's got string in this column, that's because it's text. You'll also notice that we have an A here on this column. Even if we deleted these entries, the A would remain, and you wouldn't be able to do any analysis because it would think that this is all text, even if you then put numbers into it. And that A is what would happen if you copied and pasted over the column names as well from Excel. So that's why it's really important not to just copy and paste from Excel as you see it in Excel. So the next thing within our variable view is we have different types of data, and it's quite convenient if you can tell SPSS what data you have. And you'll find this convenient in later analysis, in later videos you will see this, because you'll have different symbols appearing next to your data, and it helps you find the data you're after a lot quicker. So for example, under passenger class, again this will pop up really quickly when I click, you'll get a drop down menu. So if you remember, scale data means just continuous data that can be broken down into further increments like height, age, weight, distance. When you're recording lots of different data and values, and they're all numbers. Whereas ordinal is like a grouping category, but importantly it has an order. So passenger class has an order: first class, second class, third class. They always go in that order, just as you might have grades or something like that. Then for survived, we have nominal. So nominal is similar to ordinal in that it's about being in a group, but there is no order to that group. It wouldn't matter if survived or died came first or second. And again, with residents, we've got American, British, or other. Again, there's no reason for them to be in any order, so they just become a nominal. So any group that doesn't have an order is nominal. Whereas the age values, they were just a whole range of different numbers, so they are scale. The same with the fare as well. There wasn't a particular group of fares. All of the actual raw data for the fares has been recorded. Whereas for gender, that's nominal. Again, no reason why men or women should come first or second. And this will just show you what I mean. You can see here in age, we have actual values. So that means that they're scale by this little ruler symbol. Again, with fare, it was all different amounts that were paid for. Whereas gender, we have our codes. We have zeros and we have ones. For residents, we have our codes. We have zeros, we have twos. You can't make a mean out of these. You will literally get ones, zeros and twos added up, whereas you could get a mean for these two scale columns. So they're just some of the basic differences between ordinal, scale and nominal. Finally, the last thing you need to do is you need to assign your missing variables. Again, there are certain pieces of analysis that just will not work in SPSS unless you have told SPSS where your missing values are. And a missing value in SPSS, it doesn't look like this. This means a 0, which could be a code or it could be an actual piece of data. A missing value in SPSS will literally look like a blank cell. So what we have to do is we have to do 2 steps. We have to make sure that any of these blank spaces are replaced with -1s, and then we have to make sure that -1s are recognised as missing values. So the 2 steps involved, we have the first part, which is going to transform, recode into same variables. We can hold down Shift to select anything which doesn't have an A next to it. We go to old and new values. System or user missing is selected, and then importantly you must select a value which is not organically presented in your data set. So some people choose minus 0.999. I often go for -1, but obviously if I had an actual -1 in any of my data points or any of my codes, that would not be very wise to use that. So it has to be something that isn't organically in your data set. Then you press add, and you should see this missing. Continue, and then OK. And now when I press OK, I should get this new output window. And this tells me that something I've asked SPSS to do has happened. All of your results and your tables, when you perform your statistics, they will end up here in this particular window. The second step is to then go into each of your cells, and you do have to do each one apart from any which are just text. And again, this little box appears. You have to just click it once and it will automatically appear. Click here, discrete missing values, and now I'm going to enter -1 and press OK. And I have to do that for all of these cells, except the one with the text in it. So that has given you a brief overview into familiarising yourself with SPSS and how to enter data. You should now see your -1s here in your data set, and now you are ready to perform your analysis. So please look for our further videos on how you can actually perform different types of analysis.